So appreciate y'all being here today, and we really do appreciate these, just the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation, because that's really what it's about. Y'all get the special session today, in that you've got the camera going. But just know too that once we get to the question and answer time at the end, he shuts the camera off so that y'all can be very candid in your conversations, and I can be very candid in my answers. Again, appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day. And the wonderful thing too is at the early session, right, your questions, you get to shape the rest of the day for us. So we're trying to cover, usually before these, and we've gone around to a couple of departments and said, what are you expecting to hear? What do you want to hear? And so we try and cover all the topics that we've heard up to this point. But as we get done with this at the end, feel free. You're going to have the opportunity to write comments. Let us know if there's a topic that we didn't cover, and then we can make sure we get those answers out to you all through an email or some type of communication. Okay. All right. Well, so for me, sorry I had to do my notes on this. There's another reason that we're taping the early session, and I'll get to that in a second. But since the last time we talked, I always like to talk to you about the awards that we've received. And another thing that I want to really point out about the awards, y'all know that we don't necessarily sit down with a bullet-pointed list of what's going to get us to be a Joint Commission top performer, what's going to get us to be a Leapfrog A, what's going to get us to be certified in joints or maternity care or something like that, right? We believe that if everybody does the right thing for the right reasons, and if we follow evidence-based medicine, and if we support all of that, and everybody's all in alignment, and we move forward, and we provide care the way that you should, the awards, they come afterwards. They're secondary. I don't believe in studying for the test. We all know how to provide care for patients, and that's what we do. Now then, y'all do a really, really, really good job at doing that. And so, since the last time we talked, we have, again, been a Leapfrog A hospital. And so we still remain the only Leapfrog A that's on this side of Nashville. So thank you all for the hard work. And I always point out Leapfrog, and actually when I was talking to a different group earlier I guess 2 months ago, Leapfrog is singled out. It was actually singled out by the group that I was speaking with about being one of the more difficult grades to attain. And so it's actually something that y'all have done. You've done consistently ever since the Leapfrog came out and was grading hospitals. So again, we didn't sit down and go, okay, what does it take to be a Leapfrog A hospital? We just did what we did, and then we scored ourselves out and went, hey, we got an A. So thank you all for that. The other thing that we've done is we have, again, for this year, which is actually grading you on last year, have achieved the Joint Commission top performer. We've talked before about that, where it's the top 30% of the hospitals, which you could say, well, is that really that great of a deal? But again, because this should be our 5th year in a row, if I've got that right, and that just, we pulled away from the pack. So when you've done it for 5 years in a row, so there's not many other people that can say they've done that, and none in this area. So again, congratulations to you all for that. Primarily that's around the core measures, which I know those of you who are involved with it are going, core measures, right? But that's the way that you take care of pneumonia, heart attack, stroke, CHF, AMI, all these different types of patients. And what it means is really your adherence to making sure that you do the right thing and you provide care the right way. So I appreciate your efforts around that. The other that's not been published yet, and I know that Rob, he's in the back of the room and he cringes every time I start talking about things, because sometimes we get notified and then they force us to sign these little confidentiality agreements that say that we won't publicly notify of an award that we've won for like 30 days or something like that, and then I get all ahead of it and I just tell everybody anyway. So Blue Cross Blue Shield, which for us is pretty significant because that's a large portion of our commercial insurance population here in the area, has given us a Blue Cross Blue Shield Center of Distinction for joint replacement as well as for maternity care. And so what does that mean? It means as they came in, they looked at the way that we did things, and we exceeded the quality expectations. We again follow best practice. We do things the right way. And on top of that, we manage expenses. And we make sure that not only do we provide the top level of care, but we also do things fiscally responsible. And a lot of the times, before healthcare reform and before high deductible plans, you could almost justify that we would always say, I don't want to be the Walmart of healthcare. I don't want to be the least expensive, because insurance companies were reimbursing, and so you wanted to maximize that reimbursement. Well, now you actually have a different community responsibility. High deductible plans have changed it all. If you're sitting there with your pricing up here and you're proud about it, right? We're sitting over here doing this, and our costs or our prices that we charge are way at the top. No longer is that really based on a negotiation that I had with a payer. Because y'all remember in the good old days when healthcare just cost $25? You paid your copay and everything seemed to be covered. And so it was easy for me to sit there and not really feel that bad if I had been able to maximize the price that I was getting paid, or the charge that I was getting paid on a particular test, because it just cost you $25, and everything else that I got was from the insurance company. Well, now everything I get is from the patient, because they're all on high deductible plans. As a community hospital, we have a fiscal responsibility to this community to make sure that we are, yes, we have to have a profit. We have to be able to make money on it so we can plow it back into the organization and pay for things that break and pay for salary increases and do all these kind of things. But we also have a community responsibility to make sure that we're not overcharging for that. And that's what that Blue Cross Blue Shield Center of Distinction signifies. Not only are we the highest quality, but we also make sure that we're priced appropriately so that we're not essentially gouging the community. And y'all allow us to do that. You work efficiently. You make sure that we manage our supply costs. You do things the right way. And so again, it's a thank you for that. So those are the, since the last time we talked, those are the awards that we have. You will actually begin seeing some press releases about the Blue Cross Blue Shield one coming out pretty soon. But the great thing about that is that Blue Cross Blue Shield then helps you market. So they start sending other patients that are in outlying areas to us because we're the highest quality, lowest cost provider. That's always a good thing. All right. Did y'all notice we had some snow this last weekend? A little bit, right? So those of you who were here, who were directly impacted by it and had to come in and work, this is just my time to say thank you. It was a tough time. I'm glad that we were able to get this. For those that don't know, this was the bunkhouse. We had a whole lot of cots in here, and a bunch of people were sleeping here. The sleep lab was full. Open beds were full. With employees who were staying over. We had several nursing staff that actually stayed, I believe, for three days, 2 nights, the entire time. And so it was a great team building exercise. Right? We all got to know each other really, really well. There were a lot of heroic moments. I don't know if y'all know this, but Linda Oswald, her husband went up to Clarksville and picked up a load of nurses and brought them down right in the middle of the snow. Wendy Vick was heroic effort to get in. However, unfortunately, she was one of those cars that was on the news on 65 and was unable to get here. But Dustin from the IT department loaded up. I think he really just wanted to jump in his FJ Cruiser and see what it could do. But he went out there and picked her up, saved her, and brought her in. I think that was about a three-hour trip for him to be able to do that during that. So, ED, y'all had Life Flight coming in, and everybody grabbed a snow shovel and went out there and cleared off our helipad for us. So there were just a lot of times like that it really showed why everybody was here, and that we were here to make sure that patients were taken care of. And there's
I'm sorry, didn't you do something too?
So yeah, we drove around. Again, I needed justification for a big truck and big tires, and so hopefully my wife won't bother me about that. I just put some all-terrain tires on it, which I don't know if y'all have ever priced all-terrain tires on a F-150. They're not cheap, and so my wife was upset with me. And so now I can say, well, look, if I hadn't had those, I couldn't have driven around. But it was just a good time. And it's one of those times like that we get to forget about all the minutia that's involved with operations and with management, and you actually just get to focus on patient care for a little while, and you get to focus on each other for a little while, and I think that was good. And so sometimes I think that, and it's y'all's choice. It can be a positive or it can be a negative. And to walk around this hospital and see everyone that had decided that it was going to be a positive, and we were going to have fun, and we were going to deliver patient care the right way, and that was good. I think we only had one patient that didn't want to be here and voiced that about every 5 minutes. Outside of that, everybody else seemed to be doing okay. Again, want to thank, because even it was on Friday, we look up and I believe the entire wound care staff came in, and unfortunately none of the patients did, and I think y'all did patient care work for a whole lot of time. So I can't say any patients didn't get baths and trays delivered. I know Plant Ops brought trays up. There was a lot of people doing a lot of work, so thank you all for that too. Let's see. Let's talk about growth for a second very quickly, and that's just it's going to be justification for why we've got the camera in the room today. And we've talked before about the Satellite Emergency Department, that we were applying for an application up in Clarksville. You should know by now, I hope we've communicated it well enough, that the state did deem that they were not going to let us build a Satellite Emergency Department up in Clarksville. We kind of knew it was an uphill climb to be able to do that just because of the distance requirement. Essentially what we tried to do is differentiate ourselves and say that there needs to be a quality option in that area, as well as we just need, you need heart care and you need stroke care as close to the patient's home as possible. And what we're seeing is a very, very large influx of Montgomery County patients coming down to our emergency department. They're choosing to come here. That's great. We want to be that choice for them. However, I don't like people having an active heart attack, getting in the car and driving 30 and 45 minutes to us. We need to take as much of that care to them as possible so that we can save heart and save brain. The state didn't see it that way. But I have now been called by the state to go back up today at 1 o'clock and sit in front of the Legislative Assembly and explain to them my rationale behind why that should not be a barrier to be able to take ED hospitals. And I think that there's a big slant in the government around urban hospitals. We had to hear, those of you who attended the hearing when we were applying for it, had to hear time and again them talking about, well, you know, your ED would be 20 minutes away from your hospital, and we know that if it was a hospital-based emergency department, help is only an elevator ride away. But we have to explain that, yeah, in an academic medical center, you're right. There's an attending cardiologist sleeping in that hospital, and they get on the elevator and they go to the cath lab, and the attending meets them there, and sure enough, they're good to go, right? In an academic medical center. There is not a single other facility in the state of Tennessee outside of an academic medical center where the actual provider is sleeping in-house and you can get on an elevator and go up and immediately perform the procedure. Everywhere else, and by the way, that's even including the big downtown hospital like Centennial, has to call in from 30 minutes away a provider to come do the procedure. So I get to go explain to a bunch of politicians about how healthcare actually works everywhere except for Vanderbilt. So I look forward to that, and I'll try not to have too much sarcasm and distaste when I'm explaining that. But that's where I'm going to be today. So that's the update. We're not done necessarily with the ED. It's just we had to take a little bit of a break. We have appealed the decision, but we're not going to be heard until summer on that appeal. And there's a good chance that the whole process could be fundamentally revamped by the summer anyway because of the result of the hearings that are going on today and throughout the whole legislative time. So let's see. Outside of that, Clarksville continues to be a huge, huge market for us. If you've talked to any of the orthopedic providers, I believe Dr. Beauchamp by summer is going to be either 2 or 3 days in Clarksville. The general surgeons are increasing their presence there. I think they're going to 2 days a week. Dr. Westerkam's going to 2 days a week with ENT. And so, I mean, we've got, it's just a huge market for us, and so it's doing really well. So we're not in any way, shape, or form abandoning that. We are beginning to look to over at the White House side. Anybody from the White House area understands there's a whole lot of homes being built over there, so we've got to really have an idea as to how we're going to be able to service that market too, since it's growing. So those are really the growth areas that we're looking at. And so, not to get you all too excited, but I want to talk to something because we always want to try and get information out to you all before you begin hearing rumors. The big rumor that you're going to begin hearing is actually not a rumor, it's going to be true. And that is that I'm going to be making the circuit to the Robertson County Trust, the Stokes Brown Trust. So those that you don't know, those are community entities that have monies that they typically support the hospital with those monies. But you need an ask. And so in the past, they've paid for our MRI. They've remodeled the women's services. And so the next ask that they're going to be hearing from me, I've got artist conceptual drawings of a early childhood development center that we're looking to put over where the old education building was. We're looking to remove that building and basically model it. We did get the plans from Vanderbilt, they have a bunch of them. They have 7 early childhood development centers. So we toured their facilities and said, if you were to design the best of the best, what does it look like? Give us the drawings for it. And they did. They sat down, and so it's a new one they just opened. It's called the Goddard School, Goddard. That is the plans that we have. And so we are looking to build that. It can potentially offer early childhood development from the ages of 6 weeks to 5.5 years, I believe, is if I recall correctly. It can house up to 120 kids in that age range. And so we've got all the curriculum, staffing patterns, we've got the design, the building, and the full cost. And so I'm going to run the circuit and see how much the community will support that, how much money that we can get here, and then it will be treated just like Vanderbilt, to where we would have a guaranteed number of slots for Northcrest employees, and then we would only open it up to other entities that had joined with us. So if Electrolux needs 20 slots for kids for their employees, then they would need to come in and help fund some of the building of that and the maintenance and operations. But at 120, it breaks even, it pays for itself, which is really all we're trying to do. And then I want to make sure that if we're talking to you all about potentially offering childcare to your kids, that I'm not talking about babysitting services. That I think that the way that we really build and recruit and do our own is to make sure that your children have the opportunity to participate in an early childhood development program that really sets them up on a course for huge success once they move on into kindergarten and elementary school, and then ultimately on to be future leaders within this community and within the world. So you're going to be hearing more about that as I begin running around, and so we're excited about it. If we get the funding for it, it could happen quickly. If not, it's going to be a grind, and you're going to see a capital campaign. But to me, I think it's important enough. I know from our employee surveys, y'all put that out there. So I think we need to get a plan together and get that going. Outside of that, did y'all notice 431's getting widened? Whew. Actually, I don't know if it's getting widened. They definitely put some orange barrels out there. I'm still waiting for the actual widening effort to go on. But the great thing about it is we are going to get a light in front of the hospital, and there's going to be a light at Watson Road. So if we build an early childhood development center and if we open up Watson Road, there will be a light right there, and there'll be a pull through for the hookup line and all that good stuff. So that's how we would actually get traffic in and out of there, and it opens up the care center location with another road, another entrance, and another escape route when y'all are trying to get out from the traffic standpoint. So we're excited about all those. Very last thing is we do have development plans in place, or at least development plans being pitched for the 75 acres that's right next door here. It's a little bit different because of the widening of 431. It'll allow us to potentially open it up for retail locations along 431, just right off the road, and then put a screening line of trees and a berm and everything to hide all that retail from us having to see it. And then that'll open up the rest of the property for whatever makes sense for us, and that could be long-term care, nursing home, whatever we can partner with to develop the rest of this property, which is all the woods sitting over here. Which it was nice when there were a lot of deer with the snow. I don't know if y'all saw them, but they were over here behind the 400 building a lot of the time. But we're going to mess up their habitat. All right. Well, with that, next order is going to be Kim going over her stuff with financials, and then Angie will wrap it up again. She's going to go over the safety survey that we had, the results from that. It's called the ARQ survey, AHRQ. And just before she gets into her spiel about it, I just want to let you know how important it is that you fill that out. And the reason it's so important is because it's an anonymous survey about how we take care of patients here from a safety standpoint. It's really important to hear the voice from the people who actually do the work every day. Otherwise, we would just say, oh yeah, we've got all the efforts in place and we're just kicking butt. But it's very important to get that. So I'm excited about the results. I'm excited about how it continues to trend, and Angie will go through that. So with that said, I will turn it over to Kim, and then at the end, if you have any questions about anything I've said, we'll answer them there. All right?
Good morning. It is so nice to see you. We really are excited that you come and participate. It is nice to know that you want to hear what's going on, because there's that question every now and then of, we hope they show up. We hope they get value out of what we bring to you. So I'm the finance gal. What do you want to know? How we doing, right? We're doing very well. We are doing very well, and when you think about our trend, I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record. Y'all guys are doing great, great. So we're first, how many months are we into our fiscal year? Y'all need my fingers? We're in our 7th. So we just closed, from a financial standpoint, our 6th. So we're halfway into our year. So what are we doing? How do you feel? How do you feel like we're doing? Getting some nods, some smiles, up, down, what are you thinking? We are. That is exactly where we are. We are doing very well compared to budget and to last year. So because this is taped, I'm going to try and be generic so that we can share this. If you have any questions after this, I'm willing to, hey, these are your numbers, I'm willing to tell you. But let me talk in generalities for just a minute. So what are our covenants? Do y'all remember? This is like class, isn't it? Like a little quiz. Do y'all remember what I told you earlier? Do you remember what our 2 covenants are? What the bank requires us to be, since we have so much debt, we owe them money. We have 2. Days cash, debt service. And those are our metrics that we measure every month, because we want to continue to do this, right? Upward's good. I got a cough, sorry. So compared to last year, we are down 5 days cash on hand. That's not a bad thing. You know why? How many pay periods do we have in December? 3. Last year we only had 2. So we're actually only down, and I'm saying only down 5 days, but we had an extra pay period. That means the rest of the year is we're only going to go up. Very excited about that. But even with that down, our cash is up $165,000. So we're down 5, but our cash is up. That means the expenses that we're incurring are still, our cash is still maintaining those expenses. So we've done a lot of business, haven't we, here lately? Don't you feel busy? So that means we're monitoring our expenses, we're growing appropriately. Great job to keep those down. Debt service. Our debt service has gone down 0.13. Still not bad, because remember we had 3 pay periods. We didn't last year. So I expect our next, and it will, and y'all know I am not real optimistic, but I'm telling you, and I'm telling this in front of all you, our next quarter we meet, I want to talk about our days cash on hand, how much has gone up. After that, I have something we want to roll out for you. Do you remember our PTO policy buyback? How we stopped doing that every pay period? Well, I have great news for you. We're going to reinstitute our PTO buyback policy for every pay period. So there's not going to be a once a year or every other 6 months. But the PTO policy has changed with the PTO buyback. We've developed a vesting type structure. Anybody familiar with your 401k? I'm going to cough again, sorry. How you have to be here so many years to get? Well, the PTO buyback is going to be structured like that. So there's a certain percentage, if you're here from 0 to 3, you're going to get, let me make sure my number's right, 70%. And it's going to graduate up like a vesting. So the great news is, though, but you can do it any time. But we want you to take your PTO. We want you to take your PTO, come back rejuvenated and ready to work. PTO buyback is just for you as a benefit. So we're excited to be able to roll that out again. The form's out there. It starts with the next pay period. It is open and available from ongoing. The last thing I want to talk about is I wanted to remind you that we are a small community hospital, not that you need reminding of that. But where do you go for your health care? Where do you go? We need you to keep that here. Because that money stays here. We're a sole community hospital. Our money stays here. When you look for your health care, look in the community first, is all that we ask. Just look first here. Whether they're employed or not employed, please use your dollars here first.
So I want to start off with a little slideshow. Well, that's my whole presentation actually. So my pointer works, but my clicker doesn't, so I have to use the button, so bear with me back there. If y'all want to see, there's some seats up here if y'all want to come up here where you can see a little bit better. I know this is really hard to see. But this is the results of our AHRQ survey that Randy was talking about, and this is the safety survey that we do every fall with THA, and this is the results of that. And it's really great because, oh, now my pointer's not even working. Okay, never mind. It's really great because we had improvement in every area from last year. And out of 516 responses, we had a 76 response rate, which was up from last year also. We had 17 areas of strength identified, and there were no areas of weakness identified. That's great, 17 areas of strength. The only area that we actually went down a little bit in was frequency of events reported. So what we do about that is Kathy goes to orientation, and she talks to all of our new orientees about MIDAS and how to enter events into MIDAS, because that's how we enter all of our risk events in our patient safety events. So she goes and explains that to them and how to do that so that we can be sure that we capture all of those events. 84 of the responders gave us an A or B rating on safety. That's great. I'll take an A or B every day. Hey, Lori. Look, I read this. This just kind of like stuck out at me, so I wanted to share it with y'all. Look at this. Your job is not to judge. Your job is not to figure out if someone deserves something. Your job is to lift the fallen, to restore the broken, and to heal the hurting. Isn't that prophetic? Think about that. That's why we're here. That's why we come to work every day. Right? But patients shouldn't leave here sicker than they were when they got here. We shouldn't make them worse. We should make them better. And if we make them worse, we have failed in our duties to heal them. Because this is a sacred place of healing. Right? That's what a hospital is. So in clinical leadership, we all sat down and said, how do we define no patient harm? Because we don't want to harm patients. What does that look like for Northcrest? And these are the things that we came up with. And I know it's a lot of little initials and things, but I'll explain that on each slide as we go along, okay? But it's no falls with injury, no CLABSI, no CAUTI, no hospital-acquired pressure ulcers, no ventilator-associated events, no surgical site infections, no med errors with injury, no early deliveries, no hospital-acquired venous thromboembolisms, and no hospital-acquired C. diff, Clostridium difficile, Doug, C. diff. That's our goal to our patients. That's what we want to promise our patients is when you come into our hospital, we won't give you one of these things. We won't cause you harm. We'll keep you safe. That's what we are supposed to, keep the patient safe. So just a little comparison of 2014 to 2016 on falls with injury. We had a little increase. Facility-acquired pressure ulcers, once again, we had a little bit of an increase. Now, these facility-acquired pressure ulcers, that means that there's an area of redness on the patient that's been laying in the bed. That's what a facility-acquired pressure ulcer was, that we didn't identify when they came in. So we didn't identify that they had a red place on their heel when they got here, but sometime during their stay or before they left, they developed a red place on their heel. That's just an example. Central line bloodstream infections. We had one in 2012 and one in 2016. Catheter-associated urinary tract infections, we talked about that at the last town hall meeting. That's when we put the tube into the bladder. Sometimes we inadvertently give patients infections by doing that. So our goal is to get those catheters out. 2016, we're at 1. That's tremendous. Early deliveries at less than 39 weeks, none. Ventilator-acquired events. That means that we didn't put somebody on the ventilator and then give them a pneumonia because they were on the ventilator. And that requires a lot of things like turning and suctioning the patient and good oral care. There's a lot of things that go into that. Surgical site infections, we're down to 5 in 2016. Of course, we're just halfway through the year, but I feel confident that we'll remain low. Medication error rates. Look at that nice decline. And venous thromboembolism. Now, this doesn't mean that we gave 100% of the patients a blood clot. What this means, what this means is that 99.7% of the time, we did the things that we were supposed to do to prevent patients from getting blood clots in their legs and in their lungs. Okay? Almost there, almost perfect. C. diff. I was talking to Doug about C. diff. This is highly contagious, driving that number down as well. So what does the future of safety look like? Once again, let's talk about the things that the no patient harm. If you would have told me 5 years ago that our goal would be 0, I would have laughed. I would have said that's impossible, it can't be accomplished. Today I can tell you it can be accomplished and we can do it. And that's our goal. And I can tell you that we're not perfect yet, but every one of those mistakes has been vetted out through many, many committee meetings. A lot of people sat down and put their heads together and said, let's learn a lesson from each one of these patients. How can we not do this again? So if we do have one of these events, our goal is to learn from that and not repeat that mistake. Not repeat that. How can we stop that failure from happening again? How can we change our process so that we don't cause harm, because our goal is no patient harm? So the future, you'll be seeing some more about this coming up in the next few months, and I just want to give you a heads up because I'm very excited about it. It's the Speak Up campaign, where we encourage patients and their family members to be a part of the healthcare team and to talk with us and work with us and feel like they have an active role in their healthcare. Speak up if you have questions or concerns. Pay attention to the care you get. Educate yourself about your illness. Ask someone to be your advocate. Know your medicines. Know the medicines you take and why you take them. Use a healthcare organization that has been carefully checked out, and participate in all decisions about your treatment. One thing we want to encourage is if a patient or family member's in a patient room and someone comes in and they don't see them rubbing the alcohol-based stuff on their hands, the foam or gel, or washing their hands, that they say, I didn't see you wash your hands. And we say, thank you for reminding me. Because that's what it takes to get to 0 patient harm. And we want the patients and the family members to feel like they can say that without fear of being retaliated against by any healthcare worker. Like, I'm not going to get mad at you for telling me, I'm glad you told me that. But we want them to take an active part in that. We want them to ask, I'm not used to seeing this pill, what is it? And we want them to feel free to ask that, encourage it. And then the Me campaign, which is my patient every time. My patient every time. So you'll be hearing some more about that over the next few months. Okay? And then this one, I love this one. The official winner of the Not My Job Award. I think about this slide every time somebody says, that's not my job. Look at that. Doesn't it just make you laugh?